You're listening to the Marginally Geeky Show, the epically geeky book club.
Greetings and welcome to the Marginally Geeky Show. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. Tonight we're discussing Ready Player 2, the sequel to Ready Player 1 by Ernest Cline. I've got Ray, Chris, and Sean joining me tonight. How are y'all doing?
Excellent.
Good.
I don't know about y'all. I was really looking forward to this book, and I definitely have thoughts about it. So I guess with that being said, let's go ahead and just jump right on into it. We'll just do our normal thing of initial thoughts. Would anyone like to go first?
Ray does.
Ray, what were your initial thoughts going through the book?
Well, why are we going through it this way? Why did we skip? Why did we skip so much? What's going on? Like you started right at the why? I had a lot of questions the first time I read this. I'll leave it at that for now.
Gotcha. No, I completely feel you on that, man. What about you, Chris?
So yeah, it like starts off very, very quickly and jumps very, very fast. And I realized I have a problem with dramatic irony. If I know something that one of the characters doesn't, and the character that doesn't know it is so stubbornly against the thing that they don't know about, I get very, very, very upset. And I don't like them. So I did not like Sam at the beginning of this because she was just like, no. And she was just being incredibly stubborn about it. Anyway, so it's just, yeah, so I was excited because I liked the first one. I thought it was good. I like that Will Wheaton was narrating it. I enjoy him. Yeah, I also like that it wasn't so game heavy. Like the last one was very game heavy. Like if you weren't really familiar with a lot of games, you missed a lot of the references. So I liked that with this one. But yeah, his other book too, Armada, was kind of the same like this, where you did a slow burn and then all of a sudden it ends. And then it's like, oh.
That was it? Okay, cool.
Sure. A whole book about it. Okay, all right. Gotcha. I do like though that it's that he does do kind of happily ever afters. Like it's a nice ending.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
I know.
That's actually one of the kind of problems that I had with it. But anyway, Sean, what were your thoughts?
I went into this one with way too high expectation because I absolutely love the first one.
Agreed.
And when the book takes off really, really quickly, which I don't have a problem with. But very early on, I was like, yeah, the magic just isn't there. I'm just going to be listening to this to go through the motions.
Yeah.
Some of the scenarios and the way the characters were really, it almost seemed flippant about the situation. I found it really annoyed me. I don't know if it's my age or something like that. Maybe if I was 20 years younger listening to it, I might think it was okay, but
It's not who it's written for, though.
Yeah, I know, and it made me feel old, and it pissed me off. A lot of things are doing that lately. But I don't need to be reminded of a book I'm like trying to enjoy. It's like, God damn it, I'm feeling old again. Even though the whole first book was devoted to that, and this one, there was a lot of scenarios and the way the characters were portrayed that this is annoying. I don't like this. The idea behind it, it did seem like a logical progression, which I was kind of like, I was surprised it never came up much in the first book. But then like the Oni headset and all that, like it just kind of like threw it out there, and it's like, yeah, you've had this for decades. Like seriously, like someone else would have figured it out. So, but there was holes in the plot, and It just didn't recapture the first one. Felt like it was kind of scraping the pot a little bit. Is like trying to get the little last remnants and all that. And even like he wrote it in conjunction with Spielberg on this one. This was designed to be the second movie, and no book is ever, no storyline is ever gonna get that magic if it was partially designed to be a movie, because you're limiting yourself.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Like that first book, it had so much to pull into, because it wasn't a movie, it was a book. This one is like, okay, let's not put something in because I don't think we can do that in a movie. Well, that sucks. Now I'm reading a script, and it started to feel like that.
That explains a lot.
This is some of my initial thoughts about it.
I didn't know that it was meant that it was written like Ernest wrote
I didn't know
Spielberg helped out with
that makes a lot of sense. So now
the first one felt like a celebration of the 80s, right?
Okay.
It felt like that was what it was all about, was celebrating that whole culture. This one felt like you were just plugged into it.
Yeah.
And being force fed it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And he said, like, it was good.
There's some fun stuff in it, sure.
Yeah, some interesting stuff, but it didn't recapture that first book, which sucks. But in fairness, most sequels don't.
No.
So I'm not gonna hold that against them or anything like that. But yeah, it just didn't seem as grand. Like the dire situation was. Like, I don't think I've read anything that other than like total planet killers that are like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
But the characters didn't seem to take that into account, and when they did, it was kind of whiny. So anyway, go ahead, Eugene.
Oh, thank you. Actually, you have shined some very interesting light on the situation. I did not know that was written that way. I was going to bring up, I wonder if the thought process of, I wonder if this could become a movie entered it, because I definitely kind of got that flavor of, generally when you see, in a sequel, you don't want to do the same story over again, even though sometimes that is what people want. Ghostbusters too. But you want to see the characters and everyone else progress, but generally it's like, okay, we need to turn the stakes up a little bit. And that was done in spades, to the point that I think it was overly done. And the idea that it was written, Spielberg, had some thoughts in it, definitely makes this seem like, oh yeah, this was written to become a movie, possibly. So, my first read through it, I didn't think it was a bad book. I just didn't really enjoy it. And I think it was because I had nervous tension the entire time I read it. And, kind of like I did with Heaven's River. The whole time I kept thinking, okay, I'm going to keep going and everything's going to go to shit and I'm not going to be happy, or something bad's really about to happen here. And, it didn't really quite do that, which, thank goodness, I'm glad he didn't just, and all the characters died. That would have sucked. But, I just was kind of nervous energy listening to it the first time, and then the second time I listened to it, I enjoyed it more. And this third time I've listened to it, and I just finished it like day before, I kind of enjoyed it, but I also figured out why I've had problems with it, and it's definitely helped me see it in a different light. But like I said, the information you just gave me actually has shined a lot of light on it. Yeah. So let's get into it. So the second book literally picks up right after the first book. It has been like a week. The characters spend a week together with their new found fortunes, and then they go off to go do their own things. And Sam and Wade are supposed to get back together. And in the meantime, he ends up finding this other quest that was set up by what's his name? The guy that
Halliday.
Halliday, yeah. He finds this other quest set up by Halliday when he finds this device that essentially you put it on, and instead of using like a VR glove and glasses and stuff like that to interact with the Oasis, it basically jacks directly into your brain, and you can actually feel and touch and everything else, everything in the Oasis like it was real. It's that last link that everyone's kind of hoping for VR and stuff. And so he gets it, and he shows it, it specifically says, I created this, I'm leaving it to you to decide whether or not to release it or not. And of course he goes to the other 4 members of the remaining members of the High Five. H and Shoto both said, yes, absolutely, let's release it. This could be really good, not only for us to make money, but for the world. And Samantha's just dead set against it. And then it kind of picks up, a couple years later, and 3 years. 3 years later. And like they're no longer talking to each other. It's just, like he's become this hermit. He doesn't hardly do anything. And then this quest opens up to find the 7 shards of the Siren's soul.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's immediately thrown into this quest where essentially the avatar for Anorak, Halliday, comes back, steals his robes, tells him that, hey, the update y'all just pushed is going to lock everyone into these Oni headsets. And if they go past 12 hours, they'll die. And I want you to collect the 7 shards and bring it to me, and I'll release everyone. Go. And then it to me, it kind of dragged up to that point. And then once it hit that point, it ran. It just like went through it really, really quickly. Of course, they end up with some help from some other people. They end up collecting the 7 shards. That was the other thing, was Halliday's old partner, Og, gets kidnapped, and he ends up saving the day. And we end the book, like there's a portion where they're talking about where they're going to build a spaceship because the Earth is still going to shit. And leaving Earth, and we come to find out at the very end of the book, the whole story is being told by Wade's avatar, Parsival, yep. And he and the avatars of everyone who's ever put on one of these headsets, it's basically recorded their brain and created a virtual version of them, and they're going to go off into the stars and basically maybe repopulate and everything else. So in that respect, yes, it does have a happy ending in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go ahead and start jumping into issues with it. Do we want to start with what we liked or what we disliked?
I think maybe what we like would be quicker.
Okay. Let's
just
start
with the vibe.
Let's start with that. That's actually a good idea, because that's literally how I wrote my notes for this episode. Okay. Was what I liked, what I didn't like. What I liked. Once again, going back to what you said, Sean, this totally makes sense, because there are 3 major areas. There are 7 small quests 7 quest things that they have to do to collect these shards, but there are 3 major areas where we spend time doing these things. And all of them I greatly enjoyed, even though I'm not necessarily fans of those things. The first one is the John Hughes world.
Yeah, that was cool.
I'm not a huge John Hughes fan. Like I like some of the movies. Some of the movies I don't really care for. I loved that, but I loved that time that they spent. It just felt rushed, and we'll get to that when we get to the dislikes part. But if you were a John Hughes fan, like obviously he did his research. Like I'm sure if you're a Hughes fan, you were like, yes, give me more. Yeah. That one was fantastic. The Prince Planet was fantastic.
Yeah.
That was the one that I did not care for.
I'm not a huge Prince fan, but I thought it was cool.
I enjoyed it. I didn't mind the Prince Planet. I thought it was, it was...
The Prince Planet itself wasn't too bad, but I didn't enjoy the battle.
No.
Ernest Cline,
yeah.
I'm sorry, he cannot write a battle scene. It's all over the map. And it was kind of impossible to visualize. Sorry, we're getting into the dislike. Keep going.
And then the third one is the Lord of the Ring place. And the only issue I had with it was it made sense in the story that it would take place in the First Age, because that's the one that, that would be the one that few people would, unless the absolute hardcore people would know about. But that being said, it was like, of course you're going to have to do a Lord of the Rings. He built a the whole place was built like Yes, like so. Of course, we need to go to Lord of the Rings in
Yes.
in the Oasis, but it was like a little bit of a letdown. Then it was like, oh, it's the first stage. No,
Yeah.
nothing that I actually care about showed up.
Nope.
That was one of the things I liked. The other thing that I had written down that I really liked was let me pull it up here. I loved the idea of the O&I headsets being used to record specific experiences.
Mhm.
I liked that idea. I love the fact that he's like, and that was one of the things that he really hit Sam with was, the fact that people are going through and having these experiences in other people's shoes has caused tolerance to go way, way up.
Yes.
Because you actually experience it that, and there's a part in where he's talking about how he's like, yeah, I was curious. I've experienced sex as a male, female, male, female in a group or whatever. And it's just like, love is love, dude. And then he's like, he's talking about these other experiences that other people have, what it feels like to be, just like insanely poor, what it's like to be, prosecuted, to be, have people, racism, everything, all this horrible stuff, actually experiencing it and getting not only just experiencing it, but getting the feelings fed into your brain. And I was like, I loved that idea.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that he tapped that idea and put it in the book. That part didn't kind of feel forced to me. I loved that.
Yep.
That's about the two big things I had written down for likes. What other likes did y'all have?
I did like the Shermer Planet because I'm a big John Hughes fan. So that whole scene with Ducky and Andy and that whole thing, I was like, oh, I loved it. Also, not a huge Prince fan, so that whole the Prince Planet, I was like, I know some of his stuff. I know his music or whatever. So the Raspberry Beret and the Little Red Corvette was kind of fun. But yeah, again, the Prince Planet, I think I gapped out a few times listening to that. They're still there. They're still there.
I do love the fact that while on the Prince Planet, you don't talk bad about Prince because literally a lightning bolt will strike you down. I thought that was fantastic.
It's struck by lightning. I thought that was funny. And then with I liked the Lord of the Rings Planet because although it was Arda and it was the first age, and I was like, oh, but I did learn things. Learn things. So that was enjoyable because I'm really starting to get into Lord of the Rings.
Little plug, by the way, if you want to learn more about it, Nerd of the Rings. YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Explains it all. It's great.
Nerd of the Rings. Okay, cool.
I've had this Silmarillion book Deb got it for me like 15 years ago, and it still cracks when you open it.
Oh, cool.
It's more of an eye candy piece. So.
Does it literally read like he describes it? It's more like a player's guide.
Not a story, and that's why I haven't really been able to get into it. It's Anyway, if you're a history buff, there you go.
Yeah. So I do want to read that. I want to just because of history, and I like the whole mythology.
Well, I can lend it to you.
Awesome. Give me some time. I just started the Return of the King, but I did like the idea of the Oni headset and that you could see something from somebody's point of view, because that's always the hardest thing, right? When you're disagreeing with somebody, you can't see the other person's point of view, and because you don't have their life experience. So living somebody's life experience makes you that much more empathetic, that much more tolerant. I liked, what else did I like? I'm thinking.
That's about it.
No.
Do we need to come back?
Right.
I've got one, but
well, no, I mean, I liked that it was a quick book. I'm like that it didn't, he didn't drag anything on too much. I just wish there was maybe, I wanted to know more about the low five. I wanted to know more about, I just didn't like Sam in this one. I didn't like her. She's really, I guess I didn't like just how hard and fast the division was between the four of them and how quickly just shit fell apart, which I understand that sometimes happens in groups where just one thing just cascades and it just sets everything off, and before you know it, your friend group's in shambles and you kind of don't know why. But I'm when I read books like that, I get all hopeful and like, oh, it'll be great and they'll do it together, and yeah, I didn't like, and and it was nice to see more of Og and Kira's story, because you didn't.
Yeah, that was nice.
All you knew in the first book was that Halliday just was in love with her, and that was the end of it, right? And that she was Og's wife, and there was just a little mention of her. But seeing their little blips, because it reminded me of us, right? Because we got together when we were around that age too. So it was cute to see that, and I liked Will Wheaton's.
I liked young Og.
Yeah, I liked Will Wheaton's attempt at a British accent. That was funny. That was funny.
Yeah. Ray, what about you? What did you like about it?
I liked the unsung heroes, the low five. I wanted the perspective of the book, especially the beginning, to be told from them. I think that would have helped explain the beginning of everything. If you had them start off saying, the technology's already been released, and they're discussing amongst each other theories as to why the high five split up, and if you start talking about that and not hearing about it from what actually happened, and then you have they're sitting in their area, and you actually follow her through, and you follow her through her first, and she finds the shard, and it's like, holy shit, this is huge. And then she comes back, she tells all her friends, and they're like, one of them doesn't believe her, and and then all of a sudden Percival's in front of her. Like, you can still have sort of the similar similar plan, but if you tell it from their side, I think you might get more.
But what did you like about this book?
I liked them. I liked that low five. I wanted more of them. I wanted to see them go get the ultimate weapon.
I did too.
The Dork Slayer.
Dork Slayer. Like, come on, that's friggin' awesome. Like, what happened? I want to know that, right? So he got me excited about those things, and I think there's an opportunity there. And then I liked what you guys have already touched on, the likes of, some of those things were great. We'll get into the other stuff later.
Okay. Sean?
I think probably came off by, but there was a lot in this book I did like. It was like having almost the perfect recipe, but screwing up a little bit here and a little bit there, and then you get something totally not what you expected. The only headsets opened up so many possibilities, but I think after listening to the Bobaverse for so long, it felt like a ripoff. But there was so much potential there. Mm-hmm. And I like that. The shards of Kira. Now I figured that one out pretty early on, what those shards were. He kind of made it obvious, but those memory sequences, I think were really, really well done, even though they were really, really short. A lot of thought went into each one of those worlds, even if I didn't like them, which was really only the Prince planet, and even then it was just the battle scene. But like the thought he put into Og and Kira's world that they created for kids to learn. I can't remember what it was called.
That was great.
Mm-hmm.
That was
that
good.
Sequence, and he spent time developing it, and it gave so much about Wade's history and stuff like that. It filled in a lot of gaps, and he did it really, really well. It was moments like that in the book, and they're scattered throughout the whole thing, that was like kind of brought you back into the story. It's like, hey, this is pretty cool. I like this. And he did have a lot of those in there. Just some of the stuff seemed a little out of place, or just didn't fit, or it seemed rushed. Mm-hmm. But those little moments, I think I really enjoyed that aspect about the book the most. The technology was pretty cool. I did like it. And yeah, like basically for this book, it's getting to those moments and then kind of slogging through the rest to get to the next one. Mm-hmm. Unlike the first book, which like gripped you right off the bat, and then you're holding on for dear life through the whole book because you're just like, this is so cool. This one, it was like, just hold on. Oh, we're in a dip. Oh, it's peaking back up. We're in a dip, kind of thing. So, but yeah, it was knowing that he thought some of this stuff really well through, and I enjoy it when a writer does that. I don't know how much of it was him and how much of it was Spielberg kind of thing, but yeah, that was what I really liked about the book. There was lots of those moments. I won't get into all of them and all that, but yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about some of the things we didn't honestly dislike, but I'm gonna go ahead and start off with one that we've already hit on multiple times. It felt rushed to me. The first book literally takes place over like a decade. It takes forever for it. Well, not a decade. It takes years, but it takes years for things to happen. So, they go through these long periods of time where they're like, okay, well, we're still looking. No one's been able to figure anything out because this is really hard, and no one can. It's so esoteric, no one can wrap their brain around it. And this one, they were literally being forced, you have 12 hours to complete this quest. And I mean, I know you have the artificial constraint of well, you got 12 hours where your brain's going to start, your brain's going to turn to mush being in the system. Yeah, it would have seemed a little odd, that, okay, well, maybe the people got locked in and this takes place over a month or so. And being locked in, and maybe that would have been the issue, over this time, your body is slowly but surely starting to break down. Like we've got to get this wrapped up. That would have still given it some urgency, but it also would have given it time to breathe. Because I don't feel like we had any time to breathe on this. The whole time that, even though I was enjoying the John Hughes Planet, I just kept thinking, TikTok.
Yeah.
Go. Like, you were spending way too much time trying to figure this shit out. And had we had more time to breathe, I would have been, oh no, let's explore. Let's see what's going on here and how all this stuff fits together. But that was one of the things is I felt rushed the entire time. And he even brings it up. They're like, when they're on the Prince planet, they're like, we've got to go as fast as we can. We've already spent 15 minutes here. And I'm just like, well, it's only 15 minutes. But in the grand scheme of 12 hours, that's a really long period of time. So that was one of my biggest issues, was it just felt rushed. Like I said, the first book was this huge, grand, epic quest. And this one, being a sequel, I know they felt like they needed to turn the heat up on it, but man, you cooked this one way too quick.
I was going to say, so the big one was one grand, big, huge quest. This one felt like a lot of mini quests. Like this is the difference between playing like Super Mario as a whole and playing Mario Party. Like this is Mario Party. This was like okay, we're playing this mini game. Okay, what's the next one? Okay, now we're playing this mini game. Okay, what's the next one?
Yeah, I can see. I see what you're saying about that. So, anyone else want to touch on the time period or
like the actual like 80s kind of thing again?
Oh no, just the amount. Did it seem rushed to you or fast? Or...
it was rushed. I agree with you. Like it would have been nicer to have even a week. Even if they had like a week, but the fact that it was 12 hours was like, wait a minute, but it took them like 5 years to figure out the
first clue. And then all of a sudden they're like, damn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And he had to pay Lohengrin $1 billion to help him find the first shard.
Yeah.
Like it just, that, and then all of a sudden, bam. It felt a little rushed, and Anorak was batshit crazy. I didn't.
Okay, well, since you're bringing up Anorak, that was one of my other problems. The first book paints him as he's
kind of benevolent, right? Like he's
above everybody else brain-wise, and he's socially inept, and he couldn't get over that to get with the person that he thought he loved, but he was still trying to be a good guy, and he still was trying to do what he thought was best. Yeah. This book kind of keeps painting him worse and worse and worse. Like, man, you were a jerk, not just a jerk. Like, you were a creep.
Yes. Yeah. A creep.
I disliked that because, I mean, we're getting more information on him, but it just kind of felt like, not that he was necessarily a hero, but it's like, man, we're really tearing this guy down, even though he ends up leaving the technology that is probably what is the only thing that has saved the world at this point. Because like they said, when the Oasis came online, and especially now with the headset or whatever, they're like, overpopulation is going down, and like the spread of disease is going down, and it sounds like they're starting to curb some stuff, but they constantly keep, painting him as just this horrible guy because he tried, he really wanted to be with her. And yeah, he did something that was not right. It was not great. But on the other hand, he also kind of gave her immortality. So
Yeah.
It was used as a plot device, though. Like so they kept bashing him the whole time. Every memory that you saw of him made it worse and worse. But that was intentional, because of that little speech that Kira gives at the end, explaining things to him when he finally gets it and feels so much remorse, and it's a high point in the story if you really start listening and thinking about Kira's little speech at the end. But that wouldn't have worked if Halliday had remained like kind of neutral or just kind of stupid. No, you had to paint him badly. And each step brought up, and then Kira's like, explain how what you did was wrong. I want you to see how you acted all the way through, and that dawning of like, holy fuck, I fucked up. That's a humanizing moment for Halliday, which brings him back. So it needed to get that way, and I really like that. Like anytime Kira was involved in the story, right in the end, was like, oh, this is writing. I liked this.
Yeah.
He was an idiot. He was a jerk throughout the whole thing, but he had to be. As for Anorak, okay, two separate characters.
And see, I think that's the problem, though, is that you're right. That redemption part where she explains it to him and he gets it and everything else, I think that was fine. The problem is we still have Anorak as just being this monster essentially, and they are separate characters.
Yeah, you have to keep that. They're separate.
The whole time during the thing, though, they kept saying, "No, it's the same guy. This was him." And I know they finally kind of explained it. Oh, no, he was a different guy because he erased some of his memories. Like he would not have done that had he not screwed around with him.
Well, and they even said that right at the beginning, that when Anorak introduces himself and sends him on the quest, he said, yeah, Halliday erased some of my memories. What are we? Like, what are humans? But nothing, our memories. And it wasn't Halliday.
Yeah.
But you had to pick up on that early. You didn't know it was an important point until the end. But
it would have been better to have that really brought up and reinforced somewhere, right? Reinforced, like, this is not Halliday. Like, this is a different version of him because he doesn't have those memories. And I think that might have been maybe
during the final battle, maybe that's what it should have been. Is Og been like, you are not the man that I created everything with. You are you're nothing to me.
You're better than this. Why are you doing this?
Yeah, something or other that. And maybe it's just me. Maybe it just didn't click with me, because everything you're saying, Sean, I get. It just didn't click with me. Like I said, the whole time I had a hard time separating.
You recognize they're two characters right away.
And see, I don't think I did. So
yeah, and then it's like you're really hating Halliday.
Do you think it would?
Oh yeah, I did.
Just throwing a theory out here, just because I can. Do you think it would have been kind of cool then to have the low five and the high five needing to work together in the way of, because we're at Ready Player 2, you have two shards for each version. So the shards, you need two people to touch the shards. One person sees those scenes from Kira. The other person sees it from, from Halliday's. That way you kind of get both sides of it, and they can discuss, well, he felt like this and she felt like this. Like, she's clearly after Og, and I don't know, maybe something like that might have worked.
That would have been cool, except that would have screwed up the entire plot where only the heir can touch the shards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because that is the major. Otherwise, you wouldn't need Wade at all.
Well, but you could still need Wade, right? It's the heir plus the person who found it. So you
Player
could
two.
you need player 2, right?
Yeah.
Player 2. Otherwise, we're just playing player 1 still.
Yeah.
Well, next one, ready multiplayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and throw another one out there that I had. So one of the things, and I told this to Ray, I'd heard someone say this in another podcast. The reason why they thought they didn't really care for it was because, and this actually goes back to one of the things you liked about it, Chris, was the fact that the first book was really for gamers, and this one was more for pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of thought, well, maybe that's why I didn't really care for it. And then this last time that I read it, I figured out, no, that's not why I dislike. I don't dislike it, but didn't like it as much because I liked the pop culture stuff. I'm actually kind of glad that they moved and started encompassing everything in the 80s.
Yeah.
I figured out why I didn't care for this book as much, and it's because of Wade. We spent the entire first book, he's a loner, he doesn't have anyone, and he grows to have friends, and he kind of ruins that.
Yep.
But then he comes to the realization, he goes on his hero's quest, and he realizes, no, I have to have other people to not only survive, but to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the book wraps up, and he's got friends, and he has a girlfriend, and he's actually found what love is. And we start this book and we completely erase everything that he's done. And it's just like, really? I mean, I understand how, because people are like this in real life. They go through a bunch of stuff and you're like, they learned it. They got it. They understand now. No, they turn around. They're still doing the same shit again.
So as
John?
somebody who I'm going to use my mental illness to explain this. So as somebody who is mentally ill, my brain is hardwired a certain way, and it is from things that I can't recollect and trauma. So when I do things and I learn my lesson and I think it's stuck, something is going to happen to trigger something to send me back, not all the way back, but a little bit back, so that I'm kind of repeating old bad habits, but I come out of it a little bit quicker. So what I saw Wade doing was, yes, he's a loner. That's just who he is. That's his makeup. So it's hard for him to have friends, but then he gets friends and kind of screws the pooch a little bit because because people aren't perfect. So I get that because I've done that. And then you have something that brings you together again. You have friends at the end, and then something happens to trigger your trauma, and a trauma response happens that sends you back. And so you have to relearn those steps again. But it comes quicker because of the muscle memory you've already learned. So I just going through that, because he did the exact same thing, this storyline where he screwed up. He's a loner, but he's comfortable with that. Realizes, so he's got Shoto and Helen, but they have their own lives. But he seems to be okay with it. But he screwed up with Samantha. Realizes he needs friends, and then at the end he's got what he needs. But
do you think this is his version of Addicts? Because he does mention that, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is like the world on crack, and this is Wade's crack.
Yeah.
And then they bring out an even better version of crack, and it's like, wow, I need this all the time. So he touches on it. That is what happens. So but I think it would have been more telling that instead of just, I don't know if you remember Seinfeld, he kind of yada over a lot.
He did. Yes, he did.
And I think if you see Wade fall into the addiction again, and you see Wade ignoring Samantha so he can go and explore all these awesome new things, then you believe the crack more. You believe that split actually happens, where there was a lot of yada. So,
and see, maybe part of it, a lot of it, I also didn't care for. I'm like you. I did not care for Sam as much in this one either. It was very much, they split very quickly, and it was like, polar opposites at this point. But it just, to me, it was just like, I understand if he got to a point where he kind of like gradually got to it, and maybe what you said, Ray, is the best way to explain it. It just kind of like all of a sudden it was just like, wow, you didn't just regress a little bit. Like he fell all the way back, and in fact, maybe even further down the well than he did before.
Yes.
And it was just like, did you not learn anything? Like apparently you think you did, and you mentioned that you know what you're doing, but come on, dude. Like,
well, and then that's the thing. So he probably, if we're going to go here and delve into it, he probably knows that he's done something wrong, but then the shame spiral starts, and then you're just so down thinking you're such a piece of shit. So what's the point? And you just find comfort in your crack, right? Like you've already gone this far. You've already fucked everything up. So what's the point of...
I might as well go and enjoy it.
I might as well enjoy
That's
it.
at least bringing me joy. Nothing from here is giving me joy.
And with Sam, I think for me, it's in life too. I have a hard time when people are unwilling to compromise. And I find Sam very unwilling to hear anybody's side of anything. She doesn't want it. She's not hearing it. So that's the end of it. So I just find her very, that I like it. That's with all characters in books. If you're uncompromising and there's no discussion or anything like that, then I don't like that. But I don't like that in life. So, yeah, I just found her very rigid in that she had her specific ideals. And if you weren't with her, you were immediately against her. There was no wiggle room for that.
Yeah.
And I found that a little, and even because they were trying to explain to her all the good things, but all she heard was, you don't agree with me.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it was just, and then, there was the whole point where he's talking about like how he's behaving on social media and how he basically just like screwed himself over. And I'm just like listening to it. I'm like I said, maybe it's because I was like, okay, I understand some regression, but it was like I said, we went all the way back to the beginning, and I'm just like, okay, so this is the story of Wade learning all of the lessons he's already learned again. Not particularly compelling for a book per se, but
no.
So, I mean, it's life. I understand people in life are like that, but
so that's why I thought it might be more interesting if you started off with the low 5 and you started off with her, and if you follow, I can't remember that character's name. Lohengrin. If you follow that story, and then you meet up with Wade, and Wade kind of, listen, I fucked up. This is my side of the story. You saw all of this. This is what I did, and I feel like a dumb shit, and I need to work on this, right? If it's the whole show don't tell, right? So we got told everything from Wade's point of view. I think if we had have seen it from the other characters, Lohengrin really trying to, listen, I just think he's in the wrong spot or whatever. But the other ones are like, fuck him. Like, he's going to kill all these avatars just because they say one bad thing about him, right? Then you start seeing those things rather than just, I don't know. I think that would have been a better lead up to the story rather than, okay, Wade found this thing and then that happened, but they split up so that we can move on to the story.
And see, that brings me around to the last thing that I had written down was the low 5. I thought it sounded like a cool idea. I'm exactly like you. I thought, okay, whenever they said, they all kneel down, allow us to go get the Dork Slayer, it's like, cool, we still have quite a bit of this book left. We're going to find out what they went to go do. Nope, they literally show up.
Just show up.
Deus Ex Knock, what is it called? At the very end, just like, oh yeah, here's the sword.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's cool, I guess.
We didn't get to go through a dungeon for that. Like, what?
Yes, nothing. and I almost thought about it, and I've been thinking about it as you said it, hearing things from her point of view. Let me ask this. Going back to the Hexed Generation, the book basically is the story of 2 of our former main characters' kids. And then we do quickly start weaving in other characters that we've known. But it mainly kind of focuses around them. And that was one of the, not issues I had, but one of the things I was like, I kind of liked seeing it from a different perspective. It definitely added something new.
Yeah.
But it was also like we had 5 or 6 other books leading up to this point. So I was really kind of mainly, hey, these are our main characters, or we're not just going to follow them. Since this is only the second book in the series, would you have been okay if literally the main, like the majority of the book would have just been the low five and occasionally we get our other main characters in? Or do you think it would have worked?
From what we got, I would prefer that.
Okay.
only because I think the only let me go back to what you were comparing it to. So Magic 2.0, we were following Philip and Martin for so long, right? And I think the reason why we felt that way was because it's still an unfinished story, right? It's still unfinished. You have Philip being Philip, and the way that totally ended, right, with the Brits, it still feels like there's something there to be told, and we didn't get that with the last book.
Hashtag justice for Philip.
Yep.
I didn't mind the story. I just think that should have been like the 7th book after we feel like that whole story's been wrapped up. Where I felt like Ready Player One was already wrapped up.
Mm-hmm.
And then to see it kind of be torn down, I'd like to see it from a different character's perspective. If it has to, like, if we have to see, because like you said, we've already seen Wade go through this growth before, right? So, okay, what else can we do instead? Mm-hmm. That's just my take on it, though.
Sean?
Yeah, I really don't like when series take on like the kids of the main characters after. I never like that. I've read a lot of series that are like that, and I find I can understand them wanting to go to another level, just because they want to write something different. Mm-hmm. So I get that. I don't like it. I will typically stop reading the series at that point because I like my core.
Yeah.
And I don't want to screwing with them. It's like Big Bang Theory. I like my core guys. You start bringing in all the girls and all that. It lost some of its luster for me. And anyway, I think Ray has a point though where to have the low 5 in there would have been the perfect setup to do an entire new series. Like, don't even bring Wade in until, and then now that doesn't. Once again, it doesn't work with the narrative because Wade is telling this story from memory, so you can't add in stuff like that. Yeah, that was weird. Like sending them on a quest and all of a sudden they're back. Yeah, you didn't have any of the quest. But it makes sense because Wade wasn't there, so he doesn't know what went on. So he literally wrote himself into a freaking box, and like, okay, the inside the box was kind of cool, but you got the whole world outside the box too, which would have been really, really neat. And it was early enough in a series, like, yeah, they were in one book, so I'm not too emotionally attached to all these characters yet.
Yeah.
If they had gone on for a few more books, then no, don't bring in anyone else because you're just going to ruin it. Yeah. But this second book, have it instead of Ready Player 2, low 5 or something like that. Could have just done from their perspective because that group perspective would have been really, really neat. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Couldn't do it in this book. The way it was written, you just couldn't do it. And that sucks. But once again, I don't know how much did Spielberg have? Mm-hmm. Yeah. How much of a say? You could have probably rewritten the end a little bit so it wasn't from Wade's perspective. Yeah. That would allow you to follow other characters around.
You could save that for the 3rd book if you really wanted, right?
And literally, they may, like, this is going to make a ton of money again. If Spielberg gets on board, if Cline gets on board, I can see a 3rd book.
Yeah.
However, the ending in the movie will have to be a little bit different because they literally wrap this one up unless they go with the low 5. Because they've really wrapped up Sam and Wade's story at the end of this book. Yep. Because he tells them about having a family and stuff like that. And yeah, so that he cut that off. But for this particular one, just the way it was written, it wouldn't have worked. He wrote it himself into a box, like I said earlier, which kind kind of sucked. There was a lot of points in this book that were like, damn. That after you're reading the whole book, you're like, okay, I know why you can't do that. I know why you can't do that. Yeah, dumb schmuck. Why did you write it like this?
So going back to my issue with Wade, I just figured out. I think I figured it out, and kind of what my issue is, and it's because I looked at Sean, and for whatever reason, I was thinking about series that we've read. Now, granted, we haven't
Mm-hmm.
discussed this series on the show yet, but I was thinking about Ishmael.
Oh, okay.
Ishmael grows,
Yeah.
and he has setbacks.
Yes.
And even in the last books, he's still having a problem with himself, but we've continuously seen him grow. And like I said, he has stumbles, but he continues to keep growing. And that's what I don't see in Wade in this one. Like I said, I just see the all the way fall back and the all the way climb back to where he was. And you're right, he is a kid, and I have to keep that in mind as he's in his early 20s. And it's like, yeah, people in their early 20s aren't, no offense to anyone who might be listening to this.
We need someone a little younger on this show. I hate saying that, but our mentality, we're a little different than we were 20 years ago.
And I think that's what I was expecting was, okay, yeah, he's probably going to have some setbacks and fall. And I actually enjoyed the part talking about the part on the planet where he grew up as a child. Yeah. Seeing the emotional depth as to why he had a problem being on that planet, that all totally made sense. And I actually enjoyed that part. That made sense, actually, why Sam would start to warm back up and be like, hey, I know it's hard.
Yep.
I'm here for you. Like, that all felt genuine and good. Yes. It's the other stuff that just like, and I think that also goes back to the time period, like condensing all of this, 3 years worth of garbage, and all of a sudden, oh, hey, you got 12 hours to get it done. Go.
Yes.
So anyway, anything else anyone want to bring up?
It's a conflict. Like, okay, so you got all these 80s references. Okay. What age group are those 80s references aimed at? Well, it's for like the 40-year-olds and stuff like that. You're writing a teen novel. Oh, shit, man, we're not teens anymore. So
good point.
That mentality is in the wrong freaking era, like target group. Like I'll read, like I have some like teen books that from when I was a kid and all that. And like when I was a teen, they were, oh, these are so in depth. Like this is incredible. And read them now, it's like, wow, was I stupid? This is like, how come? Like, how did you not figure out this entire plot in the first couple paragraphs? And that's what this book is almost kind of written at. Like, yeah, there's some really cool stuff that brings back the nostalgic point of view, but it's aimed at the wrong damn generation. The story itself is frustrating for an adult, which is what it's aimed at.
Yeah.
And I just thought of that right now. It's like,
it's a good point.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I wonder if it would have felt better to, like, we go back to the time pressure. I wonder if it was better if Wade finally figured, we changed a little bit so that the pressure's not as on there, and it's taking time. And the 12 hours is for the last shard, right? Okay, listen, I've waited long enough.
That would have been fine too. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Then Anorak comes in and is like, Wade, I've waited long enough. You got 12 hours or you're fucking done. Like it's like, okay, holy shit. Now we got to really buckle down.
Well, the other thing they could have done, and this would have been a very simple plot device, is speed up your neural connections. So when you're in Oni, an hour equals a week.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
That would have given you like, hey, a
point.
month or something like that, or a year, or you're trapped in there. But
and then that would screw up with Sam a little bit too, where he's living this longer life, and she's like only glimpses now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how
it could have worked, and it could have fixed some of the problems that I'm sure a lot of people older people like us would have had the problems. Young people don't care about time.
No, well, it's they have so much of it.
Yeah, 12 hours, man, that's a ton of time. 12 hours. I spent longer on the toilet.
Were there any other things that y'all want to bring up, whether it be good or bad? Anything else in particular that
I want to bring up Bobiverse. Sorry, but okay, one of the things that he wrote in there about downloading a person's mind and you can only make one copy from the most recent.
Yes.
Okay. You know what? A baby could hack that. I'm sorry. But you could have multiple copies and they could be all it's a hack. If you can figure out how to copy a brain, that little safeguard on there is BS. I'm sorry. That was a cheap cop out. And yeah, having digital copies, I know it was kind of a logical progression for the Oni, but the popularity of Bobiverse, and this was written after Bobiverse came out, it just seemed like a blatant ripoff. And being such a huge fan of Dennis E. Taylor and the Bobiverse series, that pissed me off. And I knew where it was going. I think as the book was nearing its end, and I'm like, oh my freaking God, I know what he's going to do. And sure enough, it was like, oh yeah, now we have digital copies going. Those digital copies don't need to go anywhere. They don't need to colonize anything. That didn't make any sense either.
I was kind of like, I mean, I understand. Yeah, it's a time thing. They don't, they're not going to die, in the voyage out. But it was almost like, why didn't you put people on the ship to get off the planet that's dying? Because the robots could pretty much just sit there on a server, powered by solar power, and let the planet kind of scrub itself back clean.
Well, and I don't know. They keep hinting at the ship in a bottle in Star Trek TNG. Oh man, they gave that away way too early, especially if you're a TNG fan. It was like, okay, there's the ending spoiled right there.
Yeah.
But
I didn't catch it. I should have, though.
Moriarty, they didn't know they were in a ship in a bottle.
Yeah.
Why send the entire consciousness of the human race? Send them up on a server farm somewhere in the Sahara. It doesn't matter to them. They don't care.
Yeah.
So why are you sending them on a ship for humanity's future of a whole bunch of embryos? Because even when they get to the planet, they're still just copies, programs.
Yeah.
Unless there's some kind of fabrication device in there that can build them bodies.
He didn't talk about it all. So
yeah.
No. So the ending
that you can't take care of.
I didn't like the ending. The ending to me was just one big cop out. And I was like, yeah. The ending I did like was Og and Kira.
Okay. Oh yes, I enjoyed that.
That pulled together, and it was the extraneous stuff around it that was like, oh, this is bullshit, man.
You are not. Are you part of that Bobiverse fan group on Facebook? Yeah. Okay, you're not the only one. I don't know if you saw that or not. You're not the only one that expressed that thing. I mean, they have kind of a limited policy on, hey, it's okay if we talk about a few other things that are kind of related or whatever, but don't have full, huge, conversations about other book series. It's supposed to be about Bobiverse stuff. Yeah. But yeah, there was a fairly long thread. Someone posted, they're like, did anyone else get Bobiverse vibes from the end of Ready Player 2? And yeah, you were definitely not the only one that
I missed that one. But.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that felt the same way. And when I read it, and I kind of thought, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's sad because that first book was so original.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Having the ending almost a blatant ripoff, and I don't know if it probably wasn't intended. I shouldn't say that, but because it was kind of a logical progression the way his story was going, but still, come on.
It seemed like as much as it is a logical step, it does seem like a giant leap at the same time, right? It's you're going from, okay, cool, we've gone from where you can only You can now be in it.
Virtual reality.
So the next step, the next book would have been, okay, now we can copy your brain and save it.
Well, that was a huge thing too, from like being able to interact with everything to actually duplicating the mind. Now, I don't think they stressed this point enough, but Wade kind of talked about having these huge, EDM files or whatever that were the brain scan files and couldn't figure out what they were for. Okay, a brain scan? That's not huge. That is freaking cosmically massive. And then to have billions of them, that's a hell of a server farm.
Okay, I just had a thought as to what you were saying. You're right. And I hate tearing apart books because I hate listening to people do this to movies and stuff online. But I just thought about this. Wouldn't the logical progression have been, like you said, like we get a second quest and it focuses on the fact that you can now interact and be in that, and then the third book be the duplicate, because the whole point of this is to bring up 80s nostalgia and geek lore and all the stuff that we're into, and all of that shit comes in threes.
Yep.
There's always a third, at least a third thing.
Yep.
And it's like, because I'm seriously already like, okay, well, if there's Ready Player 2 and it does halfway decent, we're going to at least get 3.
Yeah.
We have to get a third one.
So,
and maybe that's what the low 5 is.
But then it's out of order. If they just go to low 5 next, and I don't give a shit because their awesome stories already happened. Like it's
the third one will be like called Jump the Shark or something like that. It's just he wrote himself in a box, and then he put the box into a freaking corner. There's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
I think make your money on the second one and use that time to think of another original idea. Good luck. All the best to you, because that first one was a Lulu, but I think by getting Spielberg involved in this one probably was a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
God, I
love Spielberg.
You say it, but you're so right.
I know. I hate to say it, but when you're writing to a movie, it's so different than writing a story where anything is possible. Technology's come a long way, but you know what? Copyright laws haven't. There's so much you can bring in. They did a great job in Ready Player One, but they left a lot of shit out.
And that's what I was going to say. You can forgive them leaving stuff out of the book, out of the movie from the book that you love, because it's a movie. Okay, we understand that. But leaving shit out of the book because it's going to be a movie,
that's unforgivable.
Which is why I think we had those 3 things. Oh, if we can get Prince's estate to sign off, if we can get John Hughes' estate to sign off, and we can get, then we can basically do this. And which is why we didn't get these giant mashups of Mechagodzilla versus Voltron versus, That
was heaven.
That was fucking heaven. Dude, that first book was so good.
Oh, yeah. So, and
none of that came up again.
There was no mashing of anything. I just realized that now. There was no...
They didn't bring back anything except for they touched on his car a little bit because he had a real one now. And they talked about his car garage that he just likes to look at and sit in once in a while. And it was another yada, yada, yada moment.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. There wasn't any blending
there was none of that.
It was all very...
That's why.
This is why I wanted to do this show, so I have someone to talk to, and these new thoughts come out.
Well, because I was wondering why it was gapping out so hard in certain world, especially the Prince one, is because there was not. It was just specifically Prince.
Yep.
There was nothing.
With the other one, you could oh man, you got this and this and this.
Yes.
I like that, but I got this.
You're right.
Now I feel like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
He could have had a whole Mortal Kombat fight, for crying out loud, in a different area.
Yeah.
Maybe that would have been a better Prince fight. You go through the different Mortal Kombat style fight between all the different princes, right?
Yeah.
And then you
that would have been more video game like. You are absolutely right.
Yeah. Oh well.
And there it is.
Well, does anyone have anything else they want to wrap up with? I will say this. I've listened to the book multiple times. the more I listen to it, the more I have liked it, because the more I've understood it. Like I said, that first read through, it was just nervous energy, because I was like, oh, please don't screw this up. And I'll definitely go back and read the first one more than I will read this one. Like, there'll be certain times where I'll go, no, I'll listen to them both. But there are probably going to be times I'm going to go, I'm going to listen to the first one, and then I'll move on to something else.
Mhm.
It's not the sequel I was hoping for. I'll
Yeah.
leave it at that.
Mhm.
So.
I agree.
It's not Gremlins 2. I'll put it that way.
I have seen neither. I don't know what that means.
She doesn't.
Gremlins 2. So, all right. Well, that being said, does anyone have anything else they want to wrap up with?
Listen to the book or read it. You need
Go
to.
read it. Go listen to it.
To make your own decision.
Make your own decisions. These are just our opinions because we love the first one so much.
Yeah.
I don't mind the second one. It's just felt like a missed opportunity.
Gotcha.
I concur.
Our next book that we are listening to keep up our tradition on for February's book being something related to love, we are going to read The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Now, this one has been around for a while. It is very, very, I don't want to say iconic, but it's one of those ones. It's like, oh yes, like everyone's read this one. It's a short book. I highly suggest, if you are going to listen, follow along with our next month's episode, you can go to the website and you can fill out the quiz. It doesn't take very long. And it will tell you which one of the 5 you fall into. So, like I was telling Ray before the episode, if you can't handle the 4.5 hour book, then literally just go take the quiz and just read up on what it says. I have to say, unlike Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, it doesn't hammer the stuff in there over and over and over again, and it is very kind of straightforward and tells you, and there's a lot of good information in there. So that should hopefully be a pretty interesting read for next month. That being said, let's go ahead and move on to other things that we've been reading. Anyone been reading anything else?
I have finished the Born in Ashes, the second chunk of Ishmael's story when he's down there being the captain, the owner.
Yes.
So I finished that, and then I finished The Two Towers, and now I'm reading Return of the King. And then after that, I'm taking a break from Tolkien land for a little bit. I have a book that a friend gave to me, Dorian Gray. So and it's a short book. I didn't realize how, and it's this little petite, it's like that big of a book, and it's like that thick. So I'm hoping to breeze through that really quickly, and then I'll read The Hobbit.
Good deal. Ray, you been reading anything?
Yeah, I'm just 6 hours left of Home Run, which is Nathan Lowell's. This is the Smuggler Tales, and it was. I'd like to get this on this whole series. I'd like to get on here because it's a fun one. So.
Yeah. Sean, what about you? You been reading anything?
I am reading Iron Gold, which is the 4th book in the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. Now, the Red Rising series, originally it was a trilogy. I loved it. It was so well written. This 4th, and I think there's a 5th book. Once again, the narration's changed. So originally in the first 3 books, it was one narrator told basically from one point of view from the main character. This one, there's 3 narrators told from 3 points of views from different characters, and I'm not enjoying it as much. Once again, it's like bringing in family now. These aren't family members, but it's like going on to the kids kind of thing and taking the story to the next level. And I'm like, well, I like the old story. Screwing with it.
Right.
It's still good, just not as good. I'm curious to see where it's going. It is a continuation of the story 10 years later, but Red Rising, I would highly recommend, even if it's just the first 3 books. I'll let you know on the 4th and the 5th book when I get them done. But yeah, very good.
I've got that written.
As funny as I usually like seeing some humor and all that, but it's still good.
I've got that written down from last time, and I'm going to look over my Audible credits for next month, and I may go ahead and jump into that series. So
yeah, when have I ever steered you wrong?
I was literally about to say that. Like, you really haven't steered me wrong yet, to be honest with you.
What book have I steered?
I wind up reading them too, so I like them. And then Quinn's
been all into them too, which is great. So
he's really liking them too.
Yeah, so the 2 books that I've read since the last time we met literally was Home Run, the last book in the smoke. I think I need to go back and re-listen to some of the other stuff, because it seems like there's a gap in time between the end of this one and where we see the characters show up for the other one. And I'm like, well, what happened in that gap of time? I kind of want to know that.
Yeah.
But
I gotta be honest with you, I haven't listened to that series that you're listening to yet.
You haven't?
The second one,
Mm-hmm.
the groupings, and my queue is so long right now. Stuff I want to listen to, so I will get to it eventually. But I think it's going to be after I re-listen to the entire series again. So
it's harder to listen to this one. I almost wish that the 2 actors could have worked together, like the 2 voice actors could have worked together.
Yes, absolutely. Because listening to the first, as I've gone through, the one female's voice, like at first it was kind of high pitched and sound kind of kiddie.
Yep.
And I didn't really care for the voice, but as the books continued to go on, I was like, oh no, that's just her voice. She's
her. And
she's just got this energetic, high-pitched voice, and that's just who she is. And I was okay with it. But yeah, when I first listened to it, I was just like, no. But I thought the exact same thing, Ray. I thought on that last book, how fantastic would it have been to have the other voice actor come in and do the voice of the guy that we know all the time, and then on that last book had them step in and been the voice for. I thought the exact same thing. That would have been great. The other thing that I read was when we talked about the book, some of the people on this panel did not care for it. I don't think anyone cared for it as much as I did, but we read Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Loved it. Hated the movie.
Oh yeah, agreed. Loved the book. Hated the movie.
It was shit.
I read the sequel to it.
Oh,
the last American Vampire.
Oh, I didn't know there was a sequel.
There is a sequel.
Oh.
It's not as it is not
Ready
as good.
Player 2.
Yeah, it's not as good, and it made me kind of look back on the first book, as in, like, he definitely goes in and finds some characters and some situations that is like, okay, that was kind of a stretch, but, like, he pulls in, like, Abe has a relationship with Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
And, he does some of that, and there is some of that. This book, imagine this book going from that period to almost modern time.
Okay.
And being able to pull in anything and everything that you want. So literally it's like, oh, so the reason why they did that is because either A, they were a vampire, or B, they were trying to fight vampires. And it is all over the fucking map. But it was okay. I think I'm definitely going to give it another listen to. But it definitely doesn't have that warm place on my heart, just like Ready Player One, as compared to the second book. It doesn't hit that same chord as the first one. The first one was just something magical. It was just great. And this one was just like, hey, go play with all of the toys now. And it's like, ooh, that's
too many choices.
Too much. Too many
choices.
But yeah, it was interesting. It was okay. So I'd be interested to kind of see if we do end up reading it, or if, at least if you read it, Chris, you and I'll have to have a conversation about it.
The Last American Vampire.
The Last American Vampire. And I have to say, I love the cover for the book. it's the World War II picture of, you know, the guy who's got the nurse kind of bent back and he's, but imagine that, but instead he's ripping her jugular out and there's blood everywhere.
Cool.
And it's just like, ooh, this is interesting. So vampires all the way into World War II. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's wicked.
Yeah. So, like I said, when I saw it, I was just like, oh, okay, I'll have to check this out. I also did not, now granted, I also didn't have as high hopes for this as I did for Ready Player 2. So I'm definitely taking it with more salt, as it were.
Okay.
That is our show for the month, ladies and gentlemen. If you would please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Google Music, Stitcher, wherever it is you listen to the show. You can check us out at epicallygeeky.com. You can also check out all the other shows that we do, including the Creatively Geeky, Epically Geeky, Sustainably Geeky, for crush meters, and you know, check out our other shows as well. And then of course you can find us on the social media at Epically Geeky. Where can we find you online, Chris?
You can find me here and Epically Geeky and Creatively Geeky and Sustainably Geeky. And there was they did a bonus episode this month. I did not. It was a book, and I did not read it. And then on Instagram at Rosen Hummingbird.
Nice. Ray, where can we find you online?
The Reluctant Yeti on Instagram. I'm almost done a painting.
It's so pretty, but it's mine, and nobody can have it.
I've got some details that I want to get in there. I'm actually going to be bugging our art store to see if I can do a curbside pickup. I saw a few interesting posts lately on a YouTube channel that I follow. Misfits of Watercolor? No, which I can't remember which one it is right now. Anyway, because I keep forgetting, you can use oil over top of watercolor.
Ooh.
So to get like really cool highlights and really good white highlights and stuff. So I'll be going back over some of the painting afterwards to make sure the highlights are there. So yeah.
Cool. What about you, Sean?
You know, screw on with Wikipedia mainly. Your favorite broken toy on Instagram. Most of the geekies, kind of.
Gotcha.
Not that sustainably thingy. But the other ones, I'm usually around.
Yeah, he is. And as usual, you can follow my individual wacky adventure online at Optimus Gene on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For everyone on the site, have a good night.